In this video, we are going to continue with quadratic equations, and we are going to focus on solving quadratic equations by completing the square. You will find this on page 144 in the Namibian Ordinary Level Mathematics textbook, Y equals mx plus c to success. Sometimes the roots of a quadratic equation cannot be obtained by factorization. So another method is used to obtain the roots, that means the answers of x, of the quadratic equation. In this section, we look at a process called completing the square. This method is based on the fact that any quadratic equation may be written in the alternative form x plus p in bracket square is equal to q, where p and q are real numbers. But first, let's look at an example. Solve the following quadratic equations. X squared equals 16. So in this case, we will just take the square root on both sides, and we will get x is 4 and x is negative 4. Okay. If I look at this one, x squared equals 5, take the square root, and the square root, and 1, remember because it's square root, one option will be positive and the other option will be negative. And then I just press it on my calculator, correct to three significant figures. And then the next one, because it's already in this bracket and this is square, I still do the same. I want to show you what I did. So in this case, I took the square root, just want to get a color, and I took the square root. Okay, and don't forget square root is plus minus. So I took the square root. So I do the same, and it's plus minus. And then remember, this is the positive, this is the negative. Then I just bring that negative 5, because remember, I want to show you again. If you have square and you take the square root, and that is part of indices, so it's x to the power 2, and the square root is a half, so it's 2 over 1. So it's 2 over 2, which is 1. So by taking the square root of a square, the square root basically just disappears. Okay. I want you to stop the video, and then you just simplify that. And I want you to do the same. Number A, I'm just going to give you A and E. You can continue the video as soon as you are finished. Okay, let's start. Number A. So basically I do exactly, it's x squared equals 49. So I basically just take the square root, and there's my plus minus. And then this is going to be, I want to take white, this is going to be x, and this is going to be plus minus 7. So therefore, x is positive 7, or, as you see, that was number A, x is negative 7. Okay, and then number E, x minus 3 squared is equal to 100. Okay, now in this case, I do exactly the same. I take the square root, and don't forget your plus minus there. Okay, so in this case, it's just going to become x minus 3, because the square just disappeared, and it's plus minus 10. And now I simplify. So it's x minus 3, make it equal to positive 10, or x minus 3 is equal to negative 10. So x is equal to 10 plus 3, x equals negative 10 plus 3. So x is equal to 13, or x is equal to negative 7. Okay, let's continue. In each of the previous examples, the left-hand side was a perfect square. Okay, you see, square. This means that in each case, it took the form x plus a squared or x minus a squared. Now, suppose we want to try to apply this, the method used in the previous examples to this. So it's not a perfect square. So the left-hand side is not a perfect square. So we cannot just take the square root of each side. What we will try to do instead is rewrite the left-hand side expression so that it becomes a complete square. Hence the name completing the square. We will add the missing term, okay, because there's a missing term. Let's recall the short method of squaring a binomial. Let's just take it up. I want to show you here. So can you remember what did we do? We squared the first term. We squared the last term. And twice the product of the two terms. So we multiplied this x times -3, that's -3x, times 2 would have given me -6x. Okay, so take a look at this. Now, let's take it a step further. I just want to take you back. I just want to take you back and just repeat. So, to find the value of C, take the value of B and divide it by 2. So in this case, say for example I have this one and I have this one. If I want to find this one, I take this middle value and I divide it by 2. Because remember, I must multiplying it by 2. The reverse of multiply is divide by 2. Okay. So divide it by 2, reverse of twice, and square the answer. So I basically take the value of the middle term, which is that 6, okay? I divide it by 2, then I get 3, and if I square it, I get 9, okay? So in general, the expression becomes a perfect square when I divide it by 2 and I just square. So in the previous examples, I had the first and the last, but if I have the answer of the first two, and I must find this answer, I'm just taking that coefficient and I just divide it by 2 and I just square. Okay, and that's what I did. So add it to it. So this becomes this. Okay, but now let's go further. Let's look at an example. Okay, so what must be added to each of the following expressions to obtain a perfect square? Remember, you take the middle, you divide it by 2 and you square the result. Take the middle, divide it by 2 and square the result. So basically, if I then, this is now a perfect square. So there's the x, there's the 7 over 2 squared. So I must add this. The same here. I take the middle, divide by 2, you can keep the negative, but due to the square it will become a positive. So I divide by 2 and I square the result. So it's actually -2 squared. Okay, now it's more challenging. It's a squared a, so what's in front of a? So it's 2k, divide 2 and I square the result. And then I will always remember that it's going to be, okay, so it's going to be y plus k. I think it's just going to be, let's just see, I'm just going to create that one for you. It's just going to be a. Let's just write it in. So it's going to be a plus k and square. If it was y squared y, it would have been y. If it was x squared x, it would have been x, but it's a squared a, so it's going to be a. Okay. I want you to stop the video and I want you to try now 25, number a. And let's just do a more challenging also. I think I, A and I. And again, you can continue the video as soon as you are finished. Let's start with try now 25. So if I look at number A, so what must be added to each of the followings to obtain a perfect square? So this was x squared plus 4x. So in this case, I'm going to take the middle value. Okay, I want to take another color. I take the middle value, I divide it by 2, and I square the result. Okay, so actually I will add, this will be 2 squared. And if I want to factorize this now, I will just say this will be x. I take that term, and it will be that 2, and it will be squared. That's how I will factorize that. Okay, this one is a bit more concentrating, and it's not b, it's number I. So this was not necessary, they just want me to write this. So in number I, I'm going to say c squared minus 10kc. So what must be added? Let's take another color again. So it was that negative 10 divided by 2. Okay, don't forget 10k. 10k divide by 2 and I square. So I must add negative 5 negative 5k squared. That must be added. And if I'm just going to factorize this, I just want to show you, then it's just going to be c, that sign negative, then that negative 5k squared. If I multiply out, I will get that. Okay, again, that was not necessary. They just actually asked me what must be added. Okay, so we are going into process of finding, completing the square. So now we will do more challenging ones. So the following examples demonstrates how a quadratic equation is solved using completing the square method. So solve the equation by the method of completing the square. Answer to 2 decimal places. Okay, so now first, just take the first 2 terms, just the x squared and the x, if that is the first 2 terms, and take this constant to the other side. And now I'm going to, so make sure the coefficient of x squared is 1, this is very important. Move the constant term to the right hand side. Now I'm going to find that perfect square. What must be added? Take the middle term, divide 2 and square. So basically I will add, because it's an equation now, I cannot just add it on one side. Whatever I do on one side, I do on the other side. But there is my perfect square now. Remember, I take the square root, x, I take that sign, and what stands there? A 3, and I square. And I simplify this side. 4 plus negative 3 times square, it's 9. And I get this. So complete the square by adding on the left-hand side. Balance the equation by adding the same value to the right-hand side. Factorize the left-hand side and simplify the right-hand side. And now I do what we did in the beginning. I take, because now I have a square. So I take the square root, and then I bring that one over, and I just press it on my calculator. So take the square root of each side, note plus minus on this side, solve the 2 linear equations. And there I solved it. Okay. Let's just see an example. I want you to stop the video, and I'm going to let you do 2 because it's quite challenging. Do number A and do number D. You can continue the video as soon as you are finished. Okay, let's start. Number A. So this is going to be x squared plus 20x minus 12, and that's going to be equal to 0. Okay, so first let's, because we want to create a perfect square, we take the constant to the other side. So this is going to be x squared plus 20x, and I just leave a space, 12 to that side. Okay, now I'm going to add, always add, and I take this coefficient, I divide it by 2 and I square. And whatever I do on one side, I also do on the other side. And now don't forget, this is now a perfect square. So if I do it, I'm going to say x plus, And now I'm just going to take the square root of that one. That's going to be 10 squared, and I simplify this side. And if I simplify this side, it's 12 plus, and this is 10 times 10, that's 100. So then this is going to, I take the square root and the square root, and don't forget your plus minus. And then this is going to become, as soon as I take, maybe it's not so clear there, as soon as I take the square root, it's x plus 10, and that is going to be plus minus 1, 1, 2. Okay, and then I'm just going to say, okay, so the one option will be x is equal to negative 10 plus the square root of 112, or x is equal to negative 10 minus the square root of 112. And that will give me, if I press that on the calculator, now you use a calculator, so therefore x is equal to 0,583, or x is, and they said three significant figures, x is equal to negative 20.6, and that's your final answer. Okay. Okay, let's do the next one. Remember, it's a recipe. So although it's a difficult recipe, it's still a recipe. So just know the steps and just follow the recipe. Okay, so in this case, the same, because there's a 1, and I'm going to make this part 1, where there's only a 1, and part 2, I will continue and make it more difficult. Okay, so this is 3p, and if I take it over negative 1, and now I complete the square, so it's plus, and it's 3 over 2 squared, plus 3 over 2 squared. And then I complete the square, so it's p minus 3 over 2 squared, negative 1. Okay, and now you can just simplify by say 3 times 3 is 9, 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, and now I'm just going to take, and I'll show you, I take the square root and I take the square root. And if I take the square root, I can actually simplify this further first. So let's just simplify. I'm just going to do it here on the side. What color did I not use so long? So if you make the denominators the same, so it's negative 1 over 1, but you can use your calculator with ABC, it's easier. It's spare time. Negative 4 over 4 plus 9 over 4, that will be 5 over 4. So I'm just going to substitute it in the next step. So it's going to be p minus 3 over 2 equals, don't forget your plus minus, and I just simplify that to 5 over 4. And now usually, if I take the square root, and it's like taking the square root of 5 and taking the square root of 4. So actually, it's square root 5, and I can take this one out too. And it's supposed that that 2 must be the same. So if I'm going to take this over, and then I have too many. Okay, so it's 3 over 2 plus minus, and then it's square root 5 over 2. So p is equal to 3 plus square root 5 over 2, or p is equal to 3 minus square root 5 over 2. And my final answers are 2.62, or p is equal to 0.38. 2 to 3 significant figures. In the next video, we will continue with example 27.